Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about a theory in which Dany will get betrayed for love by Missandei, who is in this theory no one. There's even a deleted scene between Dany and Missandei that could be hinting to such a twist that might happen in the final season, but before we get there, let's start from the beginning. Who is Missandei? Missandei is Dany's advisor, confidant and translator. Besides Missandei being devoted to Dany, there are a few things about her that are a little bit suspicious. Let's start with the fact that Missandei, a young woman on the show, and a little 10-year-old girl in the books is speaking all those different languages, which is a little bit strange to say the least. It's not about how someone could learn 19 different languages, but it's strange how could someone young as Missandei is learn all those languages in such short period of time. However, when I compared it to a girl who turned out to be 36 years old, a girl that Arya met in Bravos, this makes sense to me. It could be that Missandei is a much older person, which would explain how she learned all those languages at such a young age, especially in the books in which Missandei is only 10 years old. So basically by this theory, Missandei is no one, wearing a face of someone who was very young at the moment of their death. Very observant fan as I am would notice how Missandei once mentioned that while she was swimming, she heard someone scratching at the wall's old crumbling bricks. As a confirmation that Missandei has superpowers, or we could say Faceless man assassin skills, in the books there's also mentioned that Missandei overheard a sexual encounter between Dany and Arya and Harys. She overheard the sound of the lovemaking, which led her to ask Dany in the morning about her health, since she misunderstood the meaning of the sounds. Could Missandei hearing the Astapori scratching desperately from half a mile away be a hint at her supernatural abilities? In the books, Missandei seems to hear more than most people, and seems to be trying to tell Dany in so many words how desperate the slaves are without giving she's a spy. Another skill Missandei shares with Faceless Man is her ability to sneak up on anyone she wants, no matter how skilled and experienced person she sneaks up on is. In the books, Missandei even manages to sneak up on Sir Barristan, the protector of Dany and famous member of the Kingsguard who is always on the alert. Just earlier, in his point of view, Sir Barristan seldomly thinks about Kingsguard needing to always be on alert. He says but the battle was never truly done for a knight of the Kingsguard. Threats came from everywhere and nowhere, at any time of day or night. No trumpets announced the foe. Vassals, servants, friends, brothers, sons, even wives. Any of them might have knives concealed beneath their cloaks, and murder hidden in their hearts. For every hour of fighting, a Kingsguard knight spent 10,000 hours watching, waiting, standing silent in the shadows. And then just a bit later after that, Sir Barristan gets snuck up on by Missandei. Here's that part from the books. She might be flying home, he told himself aloud. No, murmured a soft voice behind him. She would not do that, sir. She would not go home without us. Sir Barristan turned. Missandei, child, how long have you been standing there? It's definitely odd for a child to manage to sneak up to arguably one of the best fighters and most accomplished member of the Kingsguard Westeros has ever had. Missandei's life story is also suspicious. Missandei said that she and her brothers were born at North, statement which many doubt. Some even claim that there's a hidden clue proving that Missandei is not from there, or at least the one who wears face of Missandei is not from North. In season 7, Davos asked Missandei where she's from since he cannot place the accent. This was the first red flag, as many wonder how Davos is unable to place her accent because he's literally sailed everywhere. She then reveals that she's from the island of North, to which Davos says that he heard it's beautiful there, yet he hasn't visited the island himself. Davos says that the island is apparently full of palm trees and butterflies. Missandei doesn't elaborate, and just walks away, which implies that she could be lying about her true origins. Many theorize that she doesn't say yes or no because she's never been there herself, and has no idea whether Davos' claims are true or not. However, this is not true. Early on in Game of Thrones, Missandei and Grey Worm had a conversation, and Missandei does know how North looks like. She said, I'm from an island called North, and continued with, I remember when they rowed us away from shore, how wide the beaches were, how tall the trees, and I remember my village burning, smoke rising into the sky. So a theory that Missandei doesn't even know how her homeland looks like is not true. However, it doesn't mean that the theory in which Missandei is not really Missandei but rather a faceless man wearing face of Missandei is not true. Remember that faceless men have to study the one which they plan to kill, in order to learn every detail from that one's life, and in order to portray the person perfectly whilst wearing their face in the future to truly become that person. So of course that if the faceless man is wearing face of Missandei, of course that he or she would know where Missandei was from and how her homeland looks like. Let's focus on the biggest clue, which might confirm that Missandei really is no one. The greatest clue of Missandei being no one is that Missandei is referring to herself as this one, something she struggles with in both books and the show despite her absolute knowledge of linguistics. I know that most of you think that Missandei is referring to herself as this one, meaning her slave title as a result of them not having names, but Missandei has her name, and additionally Missandei is not a slave anymore, which could only mean that Missandei is someone else, that Missandei is no one. Also, I'm aware that you might say that faceless men refer to themselves as a man or a woman, not this one, but you might be wrong. Faceless men are not actually supposed to talk like that. Jaqen refers to himself as a man, not as a result of him being one of the faceless men, which he is, but as a result of the faceless man impersonating Jaqen. Let me explain. A face that this faceless man is using once belonged to Jaqen Hagar, who was from Loreth, and there we come to our answer on why this faceless man is referring to himself as a man. It's because Jaqen was a person that lived in Loreth before he was killed, and before his face ended up in the Hall of Faces, and in that city everyone talks that way. It's a place where everyone is referring to themselves as a man or a girl, and that's the only reason why this faceless man that wears the face of Jaqen Hagar is referring to himself as a man, because remember, the faceless men are a guild of assassins that are trained to relinquish their former identities and become no one, or in this case a Lorethi criminal by the name of Jaqen, and therefore adopt all of his characteristics in order to impersonate him as best as they can. The faceless men actually have to refer to themselves as their current character, have to refer to themselves as this one, which Missandei is doing. If this theory ever comes true, it would explain how Missandei learned all those languages at such a young age, but it would also explain her being extremely intelligent and analytical for her age, especially for her age in the books. In the books, Sir Barristan Selmy used one of Missandei's ideas in negotiation with the enemy, which was offering each man's weight in gold for the release of the hostages. Sir Barristan finds Missandei's strategy reminiscent of both Peter Baelish, whose plans are including bribes, and Varys, whose plans are including fostering division in the enemy ranks. Just take a look at this Sir Barristan Selmy quote when comparing Missandei to the ruling council of Meereen. He is said 11 years of age, yet Missandei is as clever as half of the men at his table, and wiser than all of them. All of this evidence made me believe that the faceless man is impersonating and wearing Missandei's face, while behind that face there's someone much older, explaining how Missandei knows all these languages, but is also so clever at such a young age when in fact the person beneath that face is much older. If Missandei really is one of assassins that serves the many-faced god, it comes along with even more questions that need to be answered. Is Missandei actually helping Dany, or she'll betray her when the time is right? Let's begin with the fact that the Faceless Man founders were once slaves who worked in mines. There's a story about the first Faceless Man, a story in which one man heard the prayers of other slaves to their various gods, and came to conclude that they all prayed to the same god with 100 different faces, the many-faced god. This led the first Faceless Man to give the gift of death to the most desperate slave. Later they brought that same gift to the masters as well. Now when you are introduced with the fact that the Faceless Men are against slavery, could it be that the many-faced god sent one of assassins with the face of Missandei at Slaver's Bay to kill the good masters of the city of Estaper and to end the slavery, but before she could, Dany arrived and did it herself? Well, it's certainly possible, but the most important question, do the Faceless Men support Dany's campaign against slavery? At first glance the answer is obvious, since Dany released and set free every slave she came across, but the Faceless Men might consider Dany and her 3 dragons, along with Wild Dothraki Horde, as another symbol of oppression. But the real clue to Missandei's treachery lies in a deleted scene where Dany warns Missandei never to betray her. That interesting deleted scene you can find on Game of Thrones' official YouTube channel, and it should have been included in one of season 4 episodes, but co-producers decided not to release it. The scene includes Dany and Missandei, and what happens there is the same that happened in the books, and it might be foreshadowing Missandei's eventual betrayal. In that scene, Missandei joins Dany in the terrace garden, and Dany tells her never betray me, on which Missandei replies simply with never. Could a deleted scene be foreshadowing something that is going to happen in the future? This scene could be foreshadowing what's to come, which could very well be Missandei betraying Dany. It's a well-known fact that writers like a bit of foreshadowing in Game of Thrones, and this would be evidence of that fact. My thoughts are divided, but considering that Missandei has not done anything that would cause Dany to say that, or maybe proper word would be to warn her. I'll just wait for the final season to see if that really was some kind of foreshadowing. Some claim that Missandei and the Faceless Men have already made moves against Dany, as many believe that Dany already got betrayed. Season 7 saw Dany attempts at seizing the Iron Throne, destroyed by bad luck or sometimes poor decision making. Yet could her losses to the Lannisters actually be the result of a spy traitor within her inner circle, who's giving information to Dany's enemies in order to weaken her? Many fans believe that somebody from Dany's group gave information to someone about the planned invasion of Castle Rock and the location of Yara's forces, and fans point out to Missandei being the traitor and being a part of a Faceless Man guild. What do you guys think about all of this? Missandei's character is definitely suspicious, with her being that smart and wise, knowing all these languages at such a young age. Do you guys think the Missandei referring to herself as this one, just like the Faceless men do, is suspicious? Let me know your opinion on all of this in the comment section down below. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to subscribe to our channel, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.